and that's how I foresee it, that UAAP will be the one to suffer if they don't bend a little bit with their rules.
So you think that they're going to end up being more stringent with their rules? Is that what you're saying? You think they're going to try to double down on this fact that no, we want to remain amateur. We want to maintain that amateur status for all of our players.
I think that's going to be the case. I mean, there's no indication whatsoever that they would bend. I mean, when you look at the pro league in basketball, they're very, very rigid. Welcome to another edition of Across the Line. On this episode, we talk about the new Azkals Development team that is expected to take part in the upcoming Philippines Football League. This an interesting dynamic with regards to players who are up and coming but are still participating in the UAAP and are ineligible to play in professional capacities. So there are a lot of dynamics at play here between the UAAP and the collegiate game and the professional league, and potentially the bridge, which is the Azkals Development team. We break it all down on this episode, and we hope you come along for the ride. So if you enjoy this episode and you enjoy the football content that we provide here on Across the Line, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, and on Apple Podcasts. Enjoy this episode. Less than a week away from the start of the UAAP season, and indications are pointing towards the fact that there will be an Azkals Development team playing in the Philippines Football League. So there's going to be an interesting dynamic being played between this under-22, under-23 side and the players that are playing in the UAAP but could be plying their trade on the professional stage already. Jing and Chris Greatwich.
How are you, sir?
Going to discuss a little bit about how this is going to play out now over the next year or so. That there's this new dynamic of this under-22, under-23 side that is going to be playing week in, week out now in the PFL. That is a new thing that has transpired since the SEA Games happened here in the country.
I'm guessing it's off the back of that feel-good factor that tournament produced. I don't want to say it was a resounding success, because obviously they fell short of their goal of qualifying for the knockout round, and ultimately we wanted to win a medal, right? But I think there were definitely some signs of positivity to come out of that group of players, and then prospectively seeing a long-term plan and progression for that particular group. I said on the previous podcast that I think, with the distinct lack of teams available in this professional Philippine Football League, it makes sense to have a development squad that will be made up of guys from the UAAP or guys from abroad looking to transition into the national team with a developmental focus, because certainly one of the things where we fell short in actually for the longest time, not just in recent years, is anything below the full national team. The youth teams, including the under-22s, 23s, have performed poorly. So to have that sort of pathway for some of these younger guys to progress through the system, they might not be quite ready to jump into the men's national team just yet, but still be under the watchful eye of the coaching staff on a regular basis, and then being able to play against professional players, to play against national team players in the domestic league, I think can only be a benefit to our Philippine youth system and also for ultimately the men's team moving forward.
Now, it opens up an interesting new dynamic for players who kind of are in and around that area of the team, that are sort of maybe just on the cusp of qualifying for the under-22. A lot of these players who apply their trade in the UAAP, they play until they're in their 20s. You know, they're some of them are knocking on the door at 25 and still out there and playing against college kids, you know? So now there's this opportunity where I don't have to maybe play out my entire 5 years here in the UAAP. I could start looking over my shoulder and thinking, hey, maybe I'm good enough to play Azkals Development team. Maybe I should start, thinking about getting into the professional league already. So maybe some of these players now will forgo their last year or so in the UAAP. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we've obviously seen the announcement, I think it was yesterday, that was made by Harvey Gayoso, who's going to forego his final year at Ateneo. I mean, he's had a very successful time there. I think he scored something like 50 goals in 60 games or something ridiculous like that. Yeah.
Is that his statistics?
And while I would say it's great for him to have had such a successful collegiate career, and I don't know what his personal circumstances are or what his plans are professionally, whether he wants to be a professional footballer, whether he wants to go into a different avenue.
Yeah.
But it seems like with this particular announcement, he's looking to now focus his attention on professional football. I'm also a little bit nervous about how this situation will play out, because it's not like it's an established team, and it's not like it's an established league. So I'm always very nervous of, let's say a player makes a bold decision like that to forego their final year at school. I don't know, like I said, I haven't got the privilege of knowing his personal circumstances. I hope he still finishes off his schooling, because I think that's also important, because the last thing that you want is for someone to forego their academic pursuits to, go after their dream of becoming a professional footballer. It falls flat, and then
there's no fallback.
So I'd always encourage those kids to continue with their academic career. I think that's really, really important. But I think from a professional footballer perspective, it makes total sense. If anything, it's probably too late. He probably should have been making that decision 3 or 4 years ago, because he, even as a young kid, was more than capable of stepping into professional football.
What's he now, 22, 23?
He's 22.
22.
So, when you compare him to, let's say, for example, Kenshiro Daniels, who came over here as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, and was already playing men's football, and you saw how his trajectory went from being this raw, skinny, fresh out of high school, pimply kid to, becoming a fully fledged member of the national team. That's the sort of the progression that he had in a relatively short period of time. And it was only accelerated because he was playing in a men's league. He was training with myself, with Masao Amura, with Alfred Asai, from a relatively young age. And I think it's great for Harvey, because he's managed to really create this incredible success for himself at the collegiate level. But from a professional standpoint, probably should have looked to make that jump a little bit earlier. But whether he felt it was the right time, whether there was the pathway or the outlet for him, he might have seen it in a different way. He might have seen it, well, look at the league at the moment, it's unstable. Where would I go and play? Would I go and play at Ceres? But realistically, would he play? If he's going to go to another club outside of Ceres, is it going to be financially viable? Again, these are the sorts of conversations that I'm sure he's having with his advisors. Alvin Ocampo obviously is his uncle, although he didn't play for him. That I find a bit strange. So we would love to get Harvey on the show. Maybe we can sort of delve into that in a bit more depth. But for me, I always think it's important that the kids get their academics in order, because I think the fallback option of having a degree is huge. And what are you going to do after football? So I think if there is an avenue to do that, then that's great. If this development team is able to balance the academic portion of kids still maybe playing in UAAP, still pursuing their degree, and also being able to play as an amateur in the development squad, I think that would be the best solution for everybody, because they don't have to forego playing for their school. They don't have to forego their academic pursuits, but also get the benefit from a potential professional career of playing with against the likes of Stefan Schrock, against the likes of Robert Lopez Mendy. If you're a defender, you want to get bullied by someone like him and get the experience of what it's like to play against a top class striker. So the ins and outs and the intricacies of this process hasn't been announced, and I guess these are the sorts of things that the club would have to work out. But my hope is that a player, let's say, for example, who's in the UAP does not have to choose one or the other. And again, Harvey hasn't announced that he's going to be playing on this development squad. Maybe he's got other opportunities lined up. I don't know. But what I hope is that the league, UAP, and everyone involved in this process don't make kids choose between, is it an academic pursuit or is it a professional football pursuit? Because I think in having a development squad like this, there should be an opportunity for you to balance the two.
There's an interesting thing that's going on at the moment, right? You talked about them not having to choose, which was the case not so long ago, maybe like 5 years ago. You didn't have to choose. You could,
when they were in the UFL, you mean?
Yeah, in the UFL, right? You can play, for example, let's choose Nano Amita. Arnel Amita played for FEU, played for Manila Jeepney. and then went back to FEU, no problems whatsoever because UFL was a semi-pro league, right? You fast forward 2-3 years later, and the PFL is around. You can no longer, as a UAAP player, play in the PFL and come back to play for FEU.
Mm-hmm.
That is no longer allowed.
Mm-hmm.
You could still study though. That's fine.
Yeah.
Right? Your club can help finance your studies, and if that is your priority, is to finish your studies, then your club can help you out with that, right? I mean, Nano and Orimenzi, I believe, are in that situation right now. They played their last UAP season last year. Mm-hmm. They're continuing to play professionally, but they're still finishing their degrees as the moment. Mm-hmm. Marco Casambri the same way.
Yeah. But does it have to be that way? I understand that there is the formation of this professional league.
Yes.
Right. So I understand that there then becomes eligibility issues mm-hmm. surrounding that. Yeah. But is there not a way that the PFF and the UAP can speak with one another and find a common ground with this? Because at the end of the day, it's going to be best for the development of the individual player. Mm-hmm. Last thing we want is, and we gave the example in I think in the last podcast with Nano Amita. You know, he was still playing collegiate football when he should have been playing pro football.
Yeah, no doubt.
Absolutely, no question of a doubt.
Yeah.
But if you actually to try and find the perfect balance, it would be to have a fully fledged professional league, mm-hmm. right, where they could play for their school, but also be eligible to play with this development squad.
Yeah.
And if that was something that the two parties, the UAP and the PFL, PFF could come together on this, then if they could converge and make a concession or to find a loophole in the system, yeah, surely that's going to be for the benefit of all of those players in that sort of 18 to 22 age bracket.
100%. I think so. I mean, I think the UAAP will need to start making adjustments.
Yeah.
If they don't, I think they're going to be robbed of some of their best talent in the next few years.
And then that will be detrimental to the product they're putting out.
Yeah.
Because UAP's on TV now.
Yeah.
Right?
100%. So it's going to be a real problem because when you look at people like Amani Aguinaldo, who did not bother playing his years out in the UAP, went straight pro, and is now playing abroad, right? He played for the national team. Obviously, when you look at it in the lens of just a football career, mm-hmm. he's definitely done much better than some of the peers that would have been in his age group, right? And that is because he gambled and bet on himself that he was going to be able to succeed professionally. For a lot of these players, you know, the UAP is kind of like a safety net for them. Yeah. That there's still going to be that place where I can showcase my talent. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's like, where are you going to go after the UAP? Yeah. It's professionally anyway, right? If you're going to pursue your career. So you can make that jump already. People like Zach Banzon, who did the same thing, just went straight pro. But the thing is, that's going to become more regular, I think, down the road, especially if the league normalizes and becomes more of a regular fixture mm-hmm. and isn't like, oh, is there going to be a league next year or maybe not? I don't know. But if it's going to be, you know, a bang, it's going to be like bang on every year for sure. There's going to be a league. I think some of the younger players are going to think, what am I doing? What am I doing playing the UAP? Yeah. I mean, if it's really the degree that is keeping me in the UAP, mm-hmm. then forget it. Don't play UAP anymore. Ask your club if they can finance your schooling. Yeah. Which I'm sure they'd be happy to do. You know what I mean? As long as you're there for training sessions and mm-hmm. for games and you know, you're committed to the squad, then they can do that. They can finance that for you. And I'm sure clubs would be more than happy to do that if you're not going to be halving your time with training with FEU mm-hmm. or NU or whatever other university there is, right? And that's how I foresee it, that UAAP will be the one to suffer if they don't bend a little bit with their rules.
So you think that they're going to end up being more stringent with their rules? Is that what you're saying? You think that they're going to try to double down on this fact that no, we want to remain amateur. We want to maintain that amateur status for all of our players.
I think that's going to be the case. I mean, there's no indication whatsoever that they would bend. I mean, when you look at the pro league in basketball, they're very, very rigid with that regard. And I think,
but they also, the NCAA in America is one of the worst, most corrupt organizations on the planet. Yeah. We have to be clear about that. Okay. They're a despicable organization.
Yeah.
You know, they've been ripping off their kids for decades.
They you know, when you look at the profile of NCAA, the fact that we even know about it is a testament to the profile that they have as a league over there in the United States. Yeah. And there are players out there, household names that we know even before they enter the NBA draft. They're already household names, right?
They don't make any money.
They don't make any money, which is outrageous because the league makes so much.
The school makes so much.
Yeah.
The conferences make so much money.
The UAAP makes so much money. I mean, you could cross the ball over and there's an ad for that. You know what I mean? you rebound the ball, there's an ad for that. Jesus, everything you do, there's money. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. So, I mean, it begs there's an argument to be made that these players deserve a little bit of that money. I mean, they're bringing the eyeballs to the telly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're bringing the eyeballs in the stadium. Kiefer Ravenna, these individuals, you know what I mean? They deserve a little bit, and they're having to find loopholes in order to make their money, right? Endorsement deals that, I don't know who's getting paid. Is it the mother? Is it, the brother? Whatever. It's like you have to find loopholes because technically you're not allowed to make money from playing basketball where other people are exploiting your image, your skills. They're making money off of you. Why can't you make money off of yourself? That's weird.
Are you also looking at it from a perspective of if this happens for football? So let's say the PFF and the UAP football individuals are involved.
Yeah.
Then say, okay, look, we'll make a concession here. Do you feel as though what UAP might be worried about is that going to open the floodgates for basketball?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because if you have one concession for one sport, are you going to have to make them for all other sports as well?
Yeah. That's going to be the thing, and that's why I trust that they're going to take a hard stance on it. It's either you choose this or that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point where some of these young kids are going to need good guidance. They're going to need managers and agents to look at them and tell them that, listen, you're already too good for this level, right? You're only hampering your development by staying 2-3 more years at this UAAP level, because when you look at it objectively, some of these guys don't belong there anymore. Harvey shouldn't have been playing there last year.
To be honest with you, he could have played at 15, 16.
Yeah.
In the UFL.
So imagine if he had played, he's 22 now, if he's had 5 years of experience playing at that level.
He'd have 200 games right now, probably league games.
Right? I mean, would Harvey be playing at left back at the SEA Games if he had 5 years under his belt? You know
and
what I mean?
If he was, he'd be doing it for 5 years and he'd be really bloody good.
Yeah.
Right?
You know what I mean? So it's just a shame because you look at these college players, they've got more hype around them than some of the young, promising talent that are coming through right now in the professional league, right?
Sure.
Some of these guys you don't know them. You've never heard of them, but they're very, very good. They've got less of a profile than JB Borlonga and all these kids that you feel as if they should be playing in the professional league already. And then a lot of these guys, they jump in and then they fall flat. And you see that they're not even close. They're not even close to that level yet. You know what I mean? And we know this a little bit more because over the last few years, when you look at the sides like JPV, Green Archers, man, the learning curve is so steep that they're forced to get on that level immediately. It's nice to see actually that after a few games, after getting smashed a couple times, they make that adjustment so quickly.
Yeah.
And then the Nathan Alquiroses, the Matthew Nereses, who are not a lot of hype behind them. They're proper players.
Yeah.
Proper players now. So I would personally be a huge advocate for getting people involved in the professional game much, much earlier.
Yeah. What I hope with that then is that the clubs have a duty of care to the kid. So the last thing you want is, let's say, for example, you sign Harvey Goes at 16.
Yeah.
Right. So he foregoes his eligibility to playing in college. He gets injured, breaks his leg.
Yeah.
Right. You promised me that you're going to pay for my degree when I. Well, yeah, sorry, but you got injured, so yeah, we're not going to cover that. We're already paying for your medical fees. We're already paying for this. We're already paying for that, and that's always going to be, I feel, especially with the Filipino community, the sort of the security blanket of having a degree at the end of it is going to supersede having a pro contract where you could earn money straight away for a lot of these parents. And I can't argue against that too much, just because of the uneven footing of the league and currently where it stands. Even with the development squad, I don't know how official that is yet. I see them posting for tryouts. They've announced that they were going to be in the league, but again, is it going to be for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? We don't know. So that's always the trade-off. That's why, for me, in an ideal scenario, you could have either the club guarantee that they will cover their academic pursuits.
Yeah.
Exactly what you said. It means that they're not having to go spend mornings off, afternoons off from training. They're not going to skip any games because they're going to be with you all the time.
Yeah.
And they can plan their academic schedule around your training times. That shouldn't be a problem. So that is the best of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
The best of both worlds on the flip side would be if the school and the governing bodies at UAAP or whatever sporting governing association they can come up with an agreement where the players can play for the national team as a development squad without the fear of foregoing their academic eligibility.
Yeah.
Is that going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And while from a development standpoint, as a footballer, it makes total sense to get these kids in and playing professional football as young as possible. And if they're ready, then go for it.
Yeah.
But is the monetary benefits there at the moment? Unless you're at Ceres, probably not.
Yeah.
So that's one thing you have to consider. And then what if a player does get injured? What if a player loses form and then the club decides, actually, that gamble we made on you isn't going to pay off. We don't see it paying off.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going to kick you to the curb. And then where does it leave that individual?
Yeah.
It's not in Europe where you've got, 4 divisions. If you're at a Premier League club and you get released, you can drop down a level, you can go to play semi-pro, earn good money and then work. It's not like that here.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like that here. It's not like if you're in the US where you're going to go to a top university, probably get a really, really good degree. And even if you don't make it, okay, I've come out of a school with a top level degree.
Yeah.
It's just not like that here. So I'd always be, while I get what you're saying with the fact that, look, from a developmental standpoint, you look at the Armani Aguinaldos of this world, is he the exception or is he the rule? At the moment, I would say he's the exception.
Yeah.
There's plenty other players who probably dabbled with professional football, gone in and played for a club, hasn't worked out. Now they're trying to find their feet in the workplace. Yeah. So I don't know. I really struggle with that, and I don't have the answer because it's completely uncharted territory right now. But I'll be interested to see how this whole thing pans out, because ideally I would love to see them come up with a way and a solution where people don't have to forego their academics.
Yeah.
Because I think that's really, really important, especially in the culture that we're in.
I think that's what makes this Azkals development team so much more important, right? Because it's kind of that middle ground, right? Where you, like you said, I'm not fully fledged professional. I'm in this development team.
Yeah.
I don't know what the payment situation is if you're part of the development team, or what kind of compensation you're receiving, but that seems like a nice loophole, right? That I am playing in a professional league, but with an amateur setup. Therefore, I can now go back and still finish my degree and play for my university. Yeah. That would be the best case scenario.
Yeah.
But how many players are good enough to play for that development team, right? As opposed to opening the doors up and allowing, Mendiola to take in. Maybe there should be an allotment for, each team gets an opportunity to pick up 2-3 developmental players, right? Then that way you can spread it out a little bit more, right? There'll be, you're not just restricted to the stars, so to speak, of that level. Then there will be individuals who might surprise you.
I think even in the Premier League now, you have to have an allocation of homegrown players.
Okay.
So that there is a mandate that you have to have an allocation of homegrown players. I forget what the exact number is in the squad, because then they start to get a little bit creative with who's homegrown and who's not.
Right.
But I think that would be another real benefit to these guys. If you said, rather than having them having to forego their academics and eligibility status, can you come up with a solution whereby, no, you actually have to have some of these guys on your roster?
Yeah.
Because Ceres wouldn't have a problem, right? They already have the attachment with the university.
Yeah.
So it'd just be a case of putting those guys on the roster. And it ties in with some other stuff that we said before. Then we could maybe have an affiliation with these clubs and then the schools, whereby people can have that trade-off of, right, well, we can provide the academic benefits. We can provide the footballing provision.
Yeah.
And then it ties into the other thing which we said before, which is creating this cultural benefit for, right, well, we've got Ateneans in our club.
Yeah.
They're now playing in the first team. Maybe the school will come out and support us.
Yeah.
Maybe the school will have a little bit more of an affinity to Mendiola, for example. Oh, so Mendiola's sound better, right? So that's a bad example. I wouldn't say Green Archers either because they have the school. But Kai, let's say Kai have an affiliation with Ateneo. Maybe they would then come out to Kai games to go and watch Harvey, to go and watch Nina Herrera,
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
and if Nino Herrera breaks his leg, can't play football anymore, at least then he would have the backup to pursue his academic career at Ateneo. You know, so these are the sorts of things that I sort of, on a bigger picture, on a larger scale, I'd really hope to see that kind of pathway, because not everyone's going to be a professional footballer. You know, but to offer these kids these opportunities and these avenues to pursue if they get injured, if they don't make the grade, if they don't want to play football anymore.
Yeah.
But at least then there's that duty of care from the club, and then there's scope for them to develop themselves within the academic system, so they don't lose out.
Yeah.
Don't lose out, because that's always the nervousness that I have when these types of agreements are made.
Yeah.
Is a kid going to go pro when he thinks it's going to be for the benefit of them long term, and then it doesn't work out? Where does it leave them?
Right. That's definitely something that needs to be considered in all of this, right? It's an interesting situation that we have going on at the moment. It's almost as if you have to be willing to throw out all the context of what we're in right now. It's like you have to go back to first principle thinking, like what is the best way that we can create these footballers, or to create the best possible culture to develop the best footballers whilst not sidelining those that fall through the cracks. Right. And if you're going to get stuck thinking about, okay, this is what the landscape is, so let's try to manipulate the landscape so that we can, figure out how to do this. It's almost like it's going to be more difficult than just scrapping everything and start from scratch, right? It seems like that would be the better approach, right? And if somebody could provide that system, smarter individuals than us, to just like, look at this seems like the best way to do it. Everybody benefits. Can we approve this or not? Or at least put it out there publicly so that people can have an opportunity to chastise individuals who are against, the mold that we're hoping for. That would be the ideal scenario. I think. But there's going to be a lot of like looking through the system and finding what is the best way that we can come out of this, where we don't sacrifice the likes of Harvey. I love talking about Amita because it stresses me out and frustrates me that he is 25 already, whereas he was a huge talent full of potential. Now he's kind of making up for lost time.
Is he the same age as Amani? Same year group, same batch? I know they played together, didn't they?
So I think they're around the same. Yeah, him.
Which is scary for me.
Yeah, it's like Amani has played a lot already. He's tested himself. He's tested himself. He's been through so many like challenging times already. He's had a dip in form that he's had to deal with, where he's kind of been cast aside, and now he's played his way back. It's, and he's only 25. So you don't want to wait until you're 28, 27 to go through those things, So he's well ahead, and he's definitely an example, but as you said, an exception that, he bet on himself and decided that he's going to go pro. And there was a lot of people who were hoping for him to fail, because he was a brash kid, and he was, you have to have that confidence in you to excel at such a young age. And there are people like, yabang naman yan, Amani, he's demanding this much, demanding this and that. I hope he fails. And, that's not something that you want to wish on a kid.
No.
You know what I mean? He's figuring himself out. He's trying to learn. Like, what were you when you were 20, man? I was an absolute moron when I was 20, 21. You know what I mean? So it's tough for these kids, especially when you're banking on a sport where at any moment in time anything could happen. It doesn't even have to be in a game. It could be a training session, you get stepped on, and that's it. You're out for the season. Whatever. It's a volatile sport, right? So
I mean, one thing I'm excited about with this project is, we've seen it in the S League. I think it's a positive move for the domestic football scene to have this pathway for these kids. I'm hoping that it will try to connect the dots with some of the younger age groups, so it does actually have the feel of, okay, those who are coming through the pipeline, they know, okay, then this is my logical progression. So once I'm in the U17 national team, U19 national team, this is my next logical step, is to be in this program. Because I think that's important. It's important for the youth development of the underage national teams to have that, at least that clear vision of this is where it's going to go. And I'm not saying that there is a clear vision right now, but it seems like a good move for these kids on that development pathway to have the opportunity to rub shoulders with, like you said, some national team players and some well-established, seasoned veterans who played in the professional league for a long time. And I'm just really intrigued to see how they perform, because they tried it in the cup, and they did okay. Didn't make it out the group, but they held their own. It wasn't any kind of crazy blowout. So in that respect, it was a good sort of litmus test to see where they would stand. I know they played yesterday in a friendly against Stallions. They drew 1-1. So yeah, I think it's a good move. It's a good move. And look, we've come on the show and we've talked about negative aspects of the PFF, but I think this is a positive move from them. So let's see. I'm hoping that they can give a good account of themselves in the league, and then also provide a really positive outlet for some of these developmental players to come here, experience playing with the youth national team, and potentially showcase themselves as players that you can push forward into the full squad.
The interesting thing as well is that the coaches, I'm pretty sure, are very much encouraging of this development. They want to encourage their players to go out and test themselves in the PFL. So whether the league agrees with that or not is going to be, subject to debate, or is left to be seen. But I know the coaches are wanting to push their players. They know the level that there's the gap in level between the collegiate and professional game, and they want to bridge that gap. So this might be one of those first few steps that we see in perhaps finding a bridge between those two. It'll be very interesting if there are individuals out there listening right now who have ideas about the best ways to tweak the UAAP, or what do you guys think about the Azkals Development team and this new development in the professional game. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Send it over our way, over on our social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. UAAP season just around the corner, and we hope the best for everybody involved. Thank you for watching this episode of Across the Line.